Who has read the 157 pages of the Cairncross review? I did not expect anybody to raise hands. But so it is a review looking at how to sustain high-quality journalism in the UK. Part of the reason why hackers meet here is because we care about innovation. We care about innovation for the sake of it, it's a good thing, but also because it's a fast-changing industry, and that's one way we can survive changes. The context for this review is pretty stark. Two pieces of statistics that I thought would put it in context for you. In the last 10 years, the UK has lost 300 newspapers, local newspapers, that have been shut, do not operate anymore. There are a few towns that have no local newspapers left. At the same time, the advertising revenues for local newspapers, this is a period where we moved away from print towards digital. There's still a mix of both, but overall the revenue has declined by 60%. I don't want to talk about the depressing numbers of how many jobs have been lost, but that's the context in which this review was commissioned by the Prime Minister, and it was led by veteran journalist Francis Cairncross. I was one of 11 people to advise, provide my own expertise from the background that I have in journalism. I thought what the journalism review did was very well put by the Evening Standard. And it says, the Cairncross review was set the impossible task of holding back the tide of the free market and the digital revolution without interfering with the free press. The question was, is there any case for government intervention in an industry that is crucial for democracy? I believe that and this is published on the 12th of February last week. So this is after the review was published, and it goes on to say, and correctly responded that all three were a good thing. So we want all those three things, and the review tries to address some of that. I can answer questions about what the review was like. It's a review. There are boring aspects of it. We had to read a bunch of things, and we had to go and debate them. Things that you would want as red flags that I think are worth answering. It was an independent review. So it was commissioned by the government, but Frances was supposed to take people's opinion and come up with her own recommendations. And largely everything I saw made that clear. It was an independent review. Was there lobbying? Yes, there was lobbying. One of the things that the review tried to address was platforms, Facebook and Google, how they're squeezing out the advertising market for the press, and there was lobbying. They approached us, and individually, but also as groups. But there was a protocol on how we handle people who came to us, people who were on the panel, and Frances herself. And the review was also very broad. So the 11-person panel had people with 6, 7 years of experience as a journalist to 50 years of experience as a journalist. There were people from all aspects of the industry. There was somebody from the advertising industry. There was somebody from the PR industry. There was a media analyst. There was somebody from the legal side of the industry. And beyond that, the review reached out to people across the UK, the EU, and the US. Some of us traveled to different places to get people and their opinion of the industry, all towards trying to come up with recommendations that would help sustain high-quality journalism. I'm not going to talk through all of these, so I've grouped them together, and happy to answer questions later or talk to you when we have drinks. The first three looked at regulating the platforms. It was a way of trying to figure out, is there an intervention or a set of interventions that can help address the market failure of digital advertising? Why is it that people who produce high-quality content don't make the money for the content they produce? One that was less controversial was supporting media literacy. I think we'd all agree that if people knew and understood why journalism is of value, they would pay for it. There was a lot of the publishers, especially local publishers, came to the review and gave evidence that the BBC in some way is encroaching on their territory. The review does not say that's what the BBC is doing. The review asks the question whether that is happening and asks Ofcom, the regulator, to check if that's the case. Funding for innovation, again, we are here talking about innovation, something we argue is a good thing. A small pot of money, £10 million is what the review recommends. It's the government's decision what could be done with it. Tax relief, a peculiar thing, which I don't know if all of you are aware, but we don't pay VAT on print products. So the books or newspapers, no VAT. But if you get a digital subscription to the same newspaper, you will pay VAT. It makes no sense in the world that we live today, and the review says that we should strike that down. It also makes a case for some organizations that are not-for-profit journalism organizations to have charity status so that they can get some more tax relief on the donations that they receive from various philanthropies. Support for local journalism, the BBC last year, end of 2017 actually, started the local democracy reporter scheme where the BBC pays the salaries of reporters that are employed by local press who cover councils and courts, things that are crucial for the democratic functioning of society. And what the review says, largely it's working well. We should extend it, at least double it in size. And finally, an Institute for Public Interest News, where public interest news is defined as local journalism and investigative journalism. Things that we know have value to society, but they aren't always able to make the revenues work in their favor. And that institute, in some way, at least as I see it, anchors all the other recommendations. It's one place where people can come and meet and have sustained efforts so that the government stays on track and acts on the recommendations that have been made.